And she's literally at testifying in Congress and getting questioned about how they're covering up the investigation into the biggest child sexual abuser,
right?
In modern times, and like simultaneously they're pardoning people that are committing child sex abuse. It couldn't be more on the nose. Hello and welcome to the Bulwark Podcast. I'm your host, Tim Miller. Delighted to welcome back one of our faves. He's a former member of Congress from Illinois. He served in the Air Force and Air National Guard. He's the founder of Country First. They got a new campaign to push back on the politicization of the National Guard. He's also on Substack with the rest of us. He's in the gym a lot. He's doing peptides. It's Adam Kinzinger.
Hey, buddy, what's going on? Good to be back with you, man.
It's been a minute.
Yeah.
And, we just put this on the calendar. We didn't know it was going to be happening. And this is insane. We could do 9 hours of podcasting today with all
just
the shit.
Just pick a day, though. It's like insane every freaking day. I mean,
yeah, much to cover. We've got to start with Pam Bondi, unfortunately. It's unpleasant having to listen to her talk, to be candid. But I'm going to punish people. We're going to listen to a little bit from yesterday's performance on the Hill.
So I really have just one question for you. How many of Epstein's co-conspirators have you indicted? How many perpetrators are you even investigating?
First, you showed it. I find it.
How many have you indicted?
Excuse me. I'm going to answer the question.
Answer my question.
No, I'm going to answer the question the way I want to answer the question.
No, you're going to answer the question the way I asked.
You don't tell me.
Yeah, I did tell you because we saw what you did in the Senate.
You're a lawyer, not even a lawyer.
Committee will be in order.
Have you apologized to President Trump? Have you apologized to President Trump, all of you who participated in those impeachment hearings against Donald Trump? You all should be apologizing. You sit here and you attack the president, and I am not going to have it. I'm not going to put up with it. None of them asked Merrick Garland over the last 4 years one word about Jeffrey Epstein. How ironic is that? You know why?
Why?
Because Donald Trump, the Dow right now is
Lord.
over. The Dow is over $50,000.
$50,000 the Dow's over. That's the Attorney General of the United States of America having a temper tantrum on the Hill because she's not investigating any of the perpetrators of child sex trafficking.
Well, you know why nobody asked Merrick Garland? Because Joe Biden didn't run on Epstein files transparency. I think they should have released him, but that's not what he ran on. Trump did. And now it's literally, here's the crazy thing, Tim, is they're like, hey, we're just going to take what Donald Trump ran on, okay? And I'm going to ask you if you fulfilled that. Well, screw you, And I've got to just say, so let me just take the broad view, which is when we end up in a situation like we've had over this last year where these people from the administration come in, speak before Congress, and have complete and utter disdain and disrespect for Congress. I get it because people hate congressmen and women, and it's fun to watch them combat if you're on the side of MAGA. But this is honestly how democracies can die. When you do not respect the oversight of the people. Keep in mind, Jamie Raskin, love him or hate him, represents 700,000 Americans with a right to a voice. Every one of these folks, and she comes in and basically refuses to answer the question. And what I really think's going on here, and I'm not a psychiatrist, but I think there's something to this, which is, and I've seen this in kind of MAGA folks too, particularly my old friends in Congress who got mad at me because really they were mad at themselves. Like they know inside what they should be doing. And when I was doing what they should be doing, in essence, putting a mirror up to them, their anger at themselves would be projected outward. And I honestly kind of see this in Pam Bondi, where she knows what's going on here. She knows what she promised. She knows that she tried to cover up in March. And now she's being called out by it, and not impolitely, quite honestly. And her anger at herself, maybe at Trump, maybe at the situation she's in, is projected outward. I think she came out of that hearing, if she thought that she did anything good for herself, I think she came out of that hearing quite the opposite. I think even MAGAs were sitting around going, this was a pretty bad presentation here. And I think it's only going to make it worse. Honestly, I think it's only going to grow the interest into why is she so defensive? Why are they so defensive?
I agree. And Eric Erickson said she should be fired or resign. it was getting mocked in the manosphere. It was an extremely unhelpful performance. I would also like to answer her rhetorical question about why Merrick Garland wasn't up there. Another key difference is that Joe Biden did not lie about being on a plane with the child sex trafficker and the victims.
Yes.
So, Donald Trump was in the files more than anybody. So that is another key difference between him and Joe Biden when it comes to oversight of what was happening with the files.
Yeah, it's kind of a big deal. And also, people forget this. Donald Trump was president during the Epstein suicide, right?
Yeah,
that was not, there's a lot of people I see in the MAGA
it wasn't
sphere
Hillary Clinton. She was not the president when he killed
They think it's Hillary, or they think it was Obama, or they think it was Biden. It was Donald Trump. And I'm not making the accusation that Epstein was killed, but there are questions. And certainly in these files, like you said, I did not see Joe Biden's name. I think you said yesterday, I didn't even see Hunter Biden's name in there. I've seen Trump a lot. And so there's legitimate questions. He's the president of the United States, and that's kind of creepy.
Yeah, Epstein preyed on dorks that needed help with women. And Hunter Biden got his prostitutes all by himself. I guess just from your vantage point, having been a member, so like how different this is, because there are a lot of people who like kind of came awake to this in 2016, came awake to politics, or not sure how this is supposed to go, or maybe they've seen some, the British Parliament's pretty rowdy. Like this performance by her yesterday, both just like the style of her presentation, but also like the idea that I guess they were looking at what the members were searching for in the Epstein files, and she had like an oppo briefing on each member. I mean, that's very different than anything you would have experienced even in Trump 1.0, right?
Oh, completely. And this is Big Brother stuff. And no, I'm not going to give them the credit to say that they're building some well-oiled machine surveillance state, because I don't think they are, because I think they are so insecure that instead of looking at it and saying, well, let's just get the files out there, let's have transparency, let's, if somebody deserves to be prosecuted, let's prosecute them. It becomes like it always does with MAGA, and particularly with Donald Trump. They automatically insert themselves into the position of victim, and they automatically insert themselves in the position of defense. And the only way to defend in their world, because like you said, a lot of people have only been paying attention to politics, and the only way to defend themselves is to attack somebody. It can be spurious, whatever that word is. It can be crazy. It can be real, but that's all they know. And so, look, if I was a member of Congress and I found out this happened, I'd be furious. Not because I necessarily have a reasonable expectation of privacy that other people don't, but the idea of what I'm doing in my position as a member of Congress should be completely separate from the knowledge of the executive branch, if I so choose, comes down again to the basic thing of separation of powers. And I think we, unfortunately, because Congress is unpopular and because people say, look, only 15% of Americans approve of Congress, which has been that way since the founding of Congress, because it just is a faceless institution. But ever since that, we have been okay with chipping away at their power or their ability to do what they need to do. But that is really the only voice you have. And that's an important thing for people to remember. You do not have a voice through the president of the United States. His job is simply to execute the laws that you, through your member of Congress, have created. That's his job. We've changed that a lot, but that should be offensive to every American, honestly.
I mean, there were some pretty mild-mannered Democrats that were like, "This is fascist. You're spying on me."
Yeah,
it's really chilling. On the other hand, it's also like extremely ham-handed, and she got called out for it, and literally had the spy papers in her binder, and the Getty photographer caught her. But
and keep in mind too, when you're in a skiff, because I assume that probably most of your folks listening haven't been in a skiff.
I've never been in a skiff. My candidate's lost.
That's right. Sorry, man. We'll get you in a skiff someday. It is very sanitized. You are allowed to walk in with basically a notebook and a pen, but you cannot take your notes with you. I've seen people take notes with them, so I guess it's gray area, but you technically can't do that. So you walk in basically defenseless, as it should be, because your job is then to just see what's presented in front of you, commit it to memory, and leave. And for them to do that is just, it's disgusting. And they probably violated skiff rules, to be honest with you, and how they did it.
All right, hey guys, here to tell you about our friends at Aura Frames. Aura Frames, the easiest gift to give we're kind of past Valentine's Day season, but look, sometimes, what about a teacher at school? What about a colleague? Sometimes it's nice to give a gift for no reason. It feels a little better as a gift recipient to receive a gift for no reason than to feel like somebody was checking a box. And a great way to do that is with Aura Frames. Aura Frames offers free unlimited storage, so you can add as many photos or videos as you want. So you can go up to your work colleague and just give them a bunch of photos from last year's Christmas party where they're acting a fool, or go to one of your college. If you go through you go through your archive on your phone, find some old college pictures, put them together, throw them in the Aura Frame, send it to one of your college buddies. That's a good gift. Grandmas are the key, though. Grandmas, great aunts, great uncles, baby pics, kid pics. Put it together, a little collage. Couldn't be easier. You can preload all the photos before it ships. They open it up. They can put it on their mantle. Is that what you call it? Whatever. Mantle, side table. They throw it up there. Looks good. They have good memes. It's a great idea. You should go do it right now. Named number 1 by Wirecutter. You can save on the perfect gift by visiting auraframes.com. For a limited time, listeners can get $35 off their best-selling carver mat frame with code BULWARK. That's auraframes.com, promo code BULWARK. Support the show by mentioning us at checkout. Terms and conditions apply. One other thing that came up yesterday that is a little bit of a tale as old as time, but it's worth not letting people forget that they're doing this. Bondi was pressed by Joe Neguse, congressman from Colorado, Boulder actually, on how she had hired Jared Wise. Jared Wise is a January 6er who was there storming the Capitol, and he was shouting "kill them" to the police. Bondi's excuse for hiring this insurrectionist was that he was pardoned by Trump, and so everything's okay now. That guy works for the Justice Department, the guy that was shouting "kill them" to police. Separate news item yesterday, another January 6th rioter who had been pardoned by Trump was convicted of sexually abusing children, including an 11-year-old. Andrew Paul Johnson tried to bribe one of his victims by promising to share expected January 6th restitution money from the Trump administration. So, while she's testifying yesterday, 2 of the people they pardoned, one works for her and the other one was convicted of child rape.
If you take the universe of January 6 pardoned defendants and you say, what is the recidivism rate of them? And quite honestly, the recidivism rate, although it's not recidivism per se, but the rate of being arrested for child abuse, sexual child abuse, it is higher than illegal immigrants. Like, this is the thing. You remember how it's the whole reason they're saying we need to go after those that are here illegally is because of crime, because they commit all these crimes. And, we always push back with the real statistics and say they're more likely to actually start, if they could do it legally. Immigrants are much more likely to start a business and hire people than a second, third, et cetera, born American. But they would always bring up, they're bringing their rapists, they're bringing their druggies. I guarantee you, if you picked 1,500 random people that are here illegally and you said who is doing more child sex abuse, it would be the January 6th defendants. So why don't we have ICE go after the January 6th defendants after that? Because we really do want to this is like the 10th, 15th, 20th person that has been arrested for this crime, Tim, not just for shopping, shoplifting or breaking and entering, for child sexual abuse. And look, again, this is
she's literally at this testifying in Congress and getting questioned about how they're covering up the investigation into the biggest child sexual abuser, in modern times. And simultaneously they're pardoning people that are committing child sex abuse. It couldn't be more on the nose.
So, you were talking about the guy that was hired by the DOJ, and she said, well, he was pardoned. So the question is, 5 seconds before the guy who was soliciting children, who also was pardoned, was arrested, would he have been qualified to work at the DOJ simply because he received a pardon? Because it goes both ways.
Like yes.
I mean, it sure seems like he would be.
Kind of related to this, because he had worked in the federal Justice Department. The Dan Bongino, I got an email today from Dan Bongino that I want to mention because he's back to podcasting. He's back. He's a competitor now, and we wish him the best. And I somehow got onto his list. And this morning's email says this: FBI's bombshell Fulton County affidavit, and it goes in to talk about all of the evidence that they had of the alleged theft of the 2020 election. And I got to tell you, I just think that is such a good encapsulation of this Justice Department. That, like, they hired a podcaster to be the number 2 person at the FBI, and he left the FBI without successfully investigating anyone that allegedly stole the 2020 election, without successfully investigating anyone that was involved in Jeffrey Epstein's child sex ring, without investigating anyone that was part of the Russiagate hoax against Donald Trump. And now he's back to podcasting without successfully arresting or indicting or investigating anyone. And he's advancing the same conspiracies he was advancing before. Like, are the people this stupid? They're really like, this is really going to work? Aren't the listeners like, Dan, if the evidence for the Fulton County affidavit was that great, why isn't anybody in jail yet? Why didn't you get anybody? You were the number 2 person at the FBI. You had agency here. You knew, you had the intel.
And if it's so great, you don't think they'd be all over Fox News right now presenting the evidence? You think they'd sneak it to Dan Bongino to be the guy to leak it? This is the thing is, you know, look here, first off, this like fame addiction they have. I mean, I would like to think if I was ever hired to be the director of the FBI, that I would very happily put my doing media and podcast thing aside with pleasure and focus on being the FBI director or the deputy.
If the next Democrat puts you in charge of the FBI,
that'd be great.
I would miss you, but I wouldn't ask you to come on once a month.
I'll text you, but I'm not coming on. You know, we'll keep a good friendship, but unless you do something illegal, then I'll come after you. But here's the thing, and I'm gonna kind of go a quick different direction, but it'll make sense. One of the things that we didn't have the time in the January 6th committee to really flush out for the American people, it's in the report a little bit, but is the role of emails, fundraising, and kind of clickbait in actually radicalizing people. So one of the things we came to realize, so between the period of the election in 2020 and January 6th, the Trump, which I'd love to know where the money went, but the Trump campaign and Stop the Steal combined raised close to $400 million, I think, in just 3 months, keep in mind. And they did that through 5 to 10 emails to everybody on their list every day, that basically would say, imagine the headline, they're stealing this. The Democrats are coming for you. Nancy Pelosi said this. Boom, 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 right? And you get 10 of these messages to your face a day. You don't even have to open the emails. Miles Bruner, who you know, who wrote for the Bulwark about leaving, he talks about his role in some of the fundraising and stuff like that. All of those emails, those headlines, you do not need to open the body of the email. That each one is a dopamine hit. So if 10 times a day you get a dopamine hit for 3 months, you become radicalized. And that's what Dan Bongino is doing. Of course, we know that he doesn't have any specific evidence that proves the Fulton County case. But if you see that and you get that dopamine hit, you will watch him, you'll listen to him, you'll go to his YouTube feed or whatever, and he makes money off you. This whole thing, all of politics on the right has become the opportunity or the operation of basically sucking every bit of wealth away from people that don't have wealth to be drained from them to give to the most wealthy, right? These, you know, the Candace Owenses, all these people, they're worth millions of dollars, but they're going to get that person on a fixed income to give them money or to pay attention so they can drain that further wealth from them. And I think we have to talk about it in that term. So Dan Bongino, screw you. You're a con artist as well.
You are kind of honest. I like you snuck in there that you're demonstrating no fear or favor if you get appointed to the FBI director.
No fear or favor.
Me if I did a crime, and I appreciate that.
Yep.
I'll
come after my own mom if she did a crime, dude.
Dan Bongino is a con artist. I just also want to say clearly that Dan Bongino is a loser.
Yeah,
he's
totally.
a loser. He got into the FBI and totally failed. Think about this. Jim Comey walks free. Tish James walks free. Don Lemon walks free. I was on his live stream earlier today. The people who supposedly stole the 2020 election, none of them have been arrested. None of them are in jail. None of the people that were part of the child sex trafficking ring that he talked about all the time are in jail. He got nobody.
Nope.
He arrested nobody.
Nobody.
His successors at the FBI seem to have detained the wrong person in the Nancy Guthrie investigation, but like they did nothing. Like he was in there for a year. He advanced all of these theories about how there are all these criminals out there, Adam Kinzinger and Liz Cheney, and you guys were all going to get arrested. There was all this bluster. Nobody's behind bars yet. Totally.
Nobody. And I just want to say one more thing. If you're like, I'm all for health and physical fitness. Okay. One of the things you won't see me do is like, yeah, damn, dude. One of the things, man, dude,
guns,
damn.
Ladies weight class paying off.
The featherweight. Yeah, there you go. I got my 2 pull-ups in. But no, listen, one of the things that like drives me nuts is be in good shape, be healthy. Please do it. Everybody. Great. But when that becomes your image and you're a 50 or 60-year-old man, I'm sorry, you're a loser, right? Unless it is specifically your job. But when you become one of these, like, I do MMA and I'm going to blah, 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 and I wear my shirt and I'm going to have Velcro and I do my boo, 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 like, and you're 60, I'm sorry. You are trying to compensate for something. I'm sorry. You're trying to, wear a revealing shirt, whatever, a tighter shirt. I don't care about that. But like, when you're out there, just all you're worried about is how people perceive your physical prowess at 60. I don't know. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
And that's
it makes you think there's some other deficiencies too.
Yes.
We won't get into that. All right. DeleteMe makes it easy, quick, and safe to remove your personal data online at a time when surveillance and data breaches are common enough to make everybody vulnerable. DeleteMe does all the hard work, wiping you and your family's personal information from data broker websites. DeleteMe knows your privacy is worth protecting. Sign up and provide DeleteMe with exactly what information you want deleted, and the experts take it from there. They send you regular personalized privacy reports and update it. This is something that we've been using to try to scrub out some of my information online. And I appreciate that I haven't gotten an email bomb lately like I had a couple months ago. So that's a win. I was also reading the other day, one of the areas where AI has been advancing really quick, contributing to the enshittification of our society by their tech overlords is in the scams department. It's a lot easier for just regular people to, start grabbing information, sending you texts and emails as part of a scam. Usually that was, left to professional scammers. Now we're democratizing the scams thanks to AI. So having something like DeleteMe that updates constantly is a good way to protect you and your loved ones. Take control of your data and keep your private life private by signing up for DeleteMe now at a special discount for our listeners. Get 20% off your DeleteMe plan when you go to joindeleteme.com/bulwark and use promo code Bulwark at checkout. The only way to get 20% off is to go to joindeleteme.com/bulwark and enter code Bulwark at checkout. That's joindeleteme.com/bulwark, code Bulwark. Tom Homan, White House border czar, said he's going to end the aggressive immigration enforcement operation in Minnesota. Homan cited increased cooperation by local officials in announcing the end of the surge, but he didn't actually cite any concessions or changes that they've made. But, we got to do some face saving. We'll see. I'll believe it when I see it. But it does seem like just a total failure in their Minnesota operation.
Completely. And here's the thing is we like to think, or we have this tendency to believe that Donald Trump, and actually you guys talked about that. You guys talk about everything, which is great in your show.
A lot happening over here.
Totally. But, the assumption that they want you to think, that MAGA or that Donald Trump wants you to think, is he doesn't care about public outcry. He doesn't care about public opinion. Yeah, he does. And he cares about it more than a regular democratically elected person, because it is key. His facade of power is key for the fear, because if he loses that facade, and one way to lose the facade is, public outcry. You don't have as many people on your side as you think. And the ability of the local Minnesotans to have pushed back as hard as they did, as peacefully as they did, as kind of neighborly as they did, is absolutely incredible. They went into these ICE operations. They went into Minneapolis with the assumption that we would see the equivalent of George Floyd, 2020. And by the way, full disclosure, I got activated with the guard for the George Floyd riots. I was flying overhead in Minneapolis, and it was very violent. Half of the city felt like it was burning. This is something completely different. And they wanted to provoke this. And the discipline that freedom-loving Americans have shown in this, I think, has been incredible. And I think we need to take a victory lap here. Now, inevitably, this operation would have ended, right, at some point. but it ends when they lose their talking point value on Fox News. The whole reason there was an ICE surge to Minneapolis was because of the Somali issue, and they wanted to go on Fox News and stir up that like fraud issue and then say we're reacting by sending ICE, and it was really going to give the feel goodsies to everybody on Fox News, and they failed at that, and they lost the value of that, and they're pulling out. That is the role of ICE, by the way, is to be a Fox News talking point. And so I think we as the kind of pro-democracy coalition should take a victory lap here. We won, and the only violence was against us and our people. And as terrible as that is, that the discipline has been incredible.
Yeah, that is tragic. But I agree on the victory lap. I mean, we're in Minneapolis next week for 2 shows, excited about it. And 18th and 19th, and was planning when we'd planned it, it was like, we're going to be there in a wartime setting. And now it's kind of a victory lap, which is nice. People deserve that. So hopefully we can bring everybody some attaboys and some joy.
And by the way, Minneapolis is such an amazing city. I was there like right before all the ICE stuff started, and it's cold and just an amazing city, though. It really is. I don't know why anybody would act like it was anything but that. I don't get it.
Just really quick aside, kind of related on this immigration stuff, is something I haven't talked about yet because it happened last night, and you're the perfect person to talk to about it. Little Greg Bovino was posting late last night, maybe drunk posting, I don't know. But he was tweeting at Amanda Moore, who's been a journalist friend. She's been on the ground covering the CBP and ICE actions, doing great work. And he was tweeting a bunch, like controlling her. I thought they took his password away, but I guess he found it, or I don't know, Stephen Miller gave it back to him. Among the things he said to her, to Amanda, was, "I'd love to see you bustling around the governor's kitchen fixing us a pie. I truly would." He also tweeted that he'd really like to try beaver.
What?
What? I'm just telling you what he was tweeting last night.
Dude,
not great.
He has to have been hammered. Right?
I guess. I don't know.
Wow.
I don't know. The little guy, the Sean Penn from One Battle After Another. He's, I think, probably lonely. I mean, he found his purpose, which was menacing and intimidating people in the streets of the cities. And that has been taken away from him. And now he's just doing gross reply guy material. Again, it's gross and should be condemned, but it also feels like a victory. It feels very sad. Yeah. That's like sad. Like that's what he's been reduced to now. It's very sad.
It's interesting. So everybody I know that's been in politics for any length of time has been through something not similar to Greg Bovino, but you'll see where I'm going on this. Something where you kind of hit some dark months, right? Some months where you're kind of depressed. You maybe don't know you're depressed and you cover it up by drinking, or you party too hard or whatever. Maybe that's Tim's entire life, whatever it is, right? I went through a phase like this in my life. And I think, frankly, it's kind of thing like you see Nancy Mace going through right now, where the pressure is intense.
I've never been through the Nancy Mace thing. Okay?
No,
I've had some dark moments. Okay, I've had some dark moments, and I've made some bad calls after a few pops. Okay, that's true. But come on, let's just.
All right. I'll revise that.
Yeah,
Tim Miller is
too much.
He's only half Nancy Mace.
Okay.
No. But you go through a point when you hit, like, I don't know, professional walls. Everybody's kind of done this in their own way. You hit a wall and you kind of go through a dark moment. This is probably what he is going through. He was just recently pictured in Vegas, got kicked out of a bar in Vegas. Yeah. Not because his behavior, but because he was a disturbance being in there, because he looked like Himmler.
It's hard to find him in the pictures, actually. I saw that people were like, these are the pictures of Greg Bovino, and then I'm looking like, where is he? And it's like, oh, wait, he's the guy that, he's just down there.
That's the best thing is when I can call people short, they're really short, right? And so he's but I just remember one time he's walking in Minneapolis and he was surrounded by other short guys. And I'm like, he literally had them recruit people that were also 5'4" to walk with him. And because he'd seen all the pictures. Anyway, yeah, I mean, I would say what you're seeing here is just a guy that got fired, probably is in a pretty dark, depressed place, and probably had a couple pops and hopped on and said that last night, and probably should be fired from federal service for that, to be quite honest with you. In Earth One, he would be fired from federal service.
He should be fired. I agree with that. So I mentioned in the intro the Country First campaign that you guys are talking about. I want to hear you talk about that. And there's, I assume, there is overlap here with the other big news item of the last 24 hours, which is the grand jury rejecting the Trump administration's effort to get an indictment in connection with that video featuring 6 Democrats who are urging members of the military and intelligence community not to comply with unlawful orders. This is another group of people who walk free that this Justice Department tried to indict. I've had just a disastrous record on this. I thought one sick little side effect of this was that Mike Johnson was asked about this.
Yeah.
And basically said that he thought that his colleagues deserved to be indicted, which is extremely low blow. I think a beginning sign of the death throes of the Johnson speakership. But anyway, I was wondering what you made of the grand jury rejection, and also kind of talk to us about the campaign you guys are doing.
I've actually testified in front of a federal grand jury, and I'll tell you, you're not even allowed to, as a witness, you're not even allowed to take your lawyer into a federal grand jury, much less the defense has absolutely no presence. So this is a uninterrupted, infomercial for the prosecution. And so to reject a indictment is incredible. This happened so many times. And in this time, this was obviously the right thing to do. Now, keep in mind, again, the prosecution is presenting the case against these 6. There's not a defense attorney sitting there saying, yeah, but it just, and the jury on their own go, no. And so that's an amazing thing. And I think that should give us some faith in not just the grand jury system, but frankly, I think the backstop of our judicial branch. The point, though, is achieving what they wanted to achieve. I don't know if they ever thought they were actually going to be able to keep rank from Mark Kelly, or if they ever thought that they were really going to be able to indict or at least get a conviction. The point is the countless number of retired military members that are scared to speak out right now. And I know 2 particularly that are, generals that are retired that everybody would know their name, that are not speaking out because of their fear of this. So that has done its job, sadly. And that's, part of the reason
afraid they're going to get court-martialed.
It's all of it. Court-martialed, security concerns, have their rank stripped, and, and I'll tell you, this is the sick thing. And this is actually why you also don't hear a lot of retiring members of Congress speak out, because they have to have jobs when they get out, and their job relies on their ability to have relationships with people in power. Whether you're a 4-star general or whether you're a former member of Congress. Why are these guys retiring, but they're still voting party lines? Because they want to go back and lobby, and they need to have access to their friends to do it. That's a sad thing, by the way. Yeah. But, on the contrary,
we should just shout out our colleague Mark Hertling now.
Yeah, absolutely.
Not being bowed by this, because
absolutely.
There's risks for everybody that are doing this.
I see him and people like Ben Hodges, who was, the general for Europe, has spoken out. There are a few that are willing to speak out, and they seriously, they get high comments from me on that. On the Country First side, I'll just be very brief. Look, our goal is just to remind people of the role of the National Guard. You can see it at country1st.com. And, we have a commercial that's out there that's basically talking about, imagine the floods actually hit your district, but the Guard's not there because they're being used by a politician to suppress people. One of the things we've seen in polling is that one of the things that actually compels people to the Guard the most is the idea that if a natural disaster hits, their Guard is, doing some political thing off somewhere. And so we talk about that. It's information for Guard members and for the public. And so I'd encourage people to take a look at it. And that's all I'll say.
It's good and important, because a lot of people don't know what the National Guard does.
Correct.
Right. Yep. And so just even as an education effort, the more people learn about what they're supposed to do, I think the more mad some of them will be, for good reason, about how the Guard's being used. I should say, as I asked you this question, I just got this text. We have a breaking little item from Senator Slotkin, who's saying that she hears that they're going to another grand jury tomorrow. So they're trying to go back at them again. How many L's do these guys need?
See, this is when we talk about what can we do in the future to put up guardrails. I will tell you, there should be some rule against double jeopardy in front of grand juries. You cannot, like they've done to Letitia James, James Comey, now these 6. Okay, one grand jury says no bill, and now you're going to go to another one, and maybe we'll find one in the South. I'm sorry, you can't grand jury hunt. That's got to be on the agenda in 3 years.
Well, we're kind of running down the list of their rake stepping. I want to talk about the situation in El Paso yesterday. So I was flying home in the morning. I was a little nervous about this because they were saying that they're shutting down the flight area around El Paso for 10 days. And I was thinking in my head, I was like, I don't know, Los Angeles to New Orleans, that kind of flies over El Paso. And then there's some misinformation out there about how New Orleans had a no-fly area, but that's Mardi Gras related. You just can't fly drones, over New Orleans during Mardi Gras. Every safety first. But anyway, the initial claim from the admin was that Mexican cartels had deployed a drone across the border. Sean Duffy declared that threat had been neutralized. And so then they reopened the airport. Turns out it was a Mylar party balloon that was shot down. And this has not been confirmed, but we're hearing that it was not shot down by the military, actually, but it was the Border Patrol who were given some weapons to use, some experimental weapons to use. So the Border Patrol guys shut down a party balloon, and as a result, they shut down the airport in El Paso.
Well, look, I want to be fair and say... I
once shot down a party balloon by accident as well. I need to come clean.
I did it in an F-15. It was okay. No. I want to be fair and say, the actual, it's comedic that they shot down a party balloon. I understand it, right? Because there are real, I will tell you, one of the things that was eye-opening to me, because I have worked the border in the Air National Guard, particularly against cartel operations, and they are better funded. Maybe not than now, but they were better funded than us back then, and they had better intelligence and stuff. And so the idea that there would be drone defense against that is good, because you'll see a lot of cartel drones come and spy, look for where Border Patrol isn't, look for right times for crossings, drugs, people, stuff like that. But it's just the 10-day closure of the airspace is what's indicative of what happens in this administration, which is instead of there being a mature discussion about first off, if you're going to shoot down a drone, you really don't need to shut down airspace. What you have to figure out is simply, are there aircraft in the flight path? No? Okay. And we can know if there's aircraft in the flight path. This overreaction happened. People woke up. WTF. I got a ton of email or text from people that wondered if it was aliens related. I'm dead serious.
Because it is kind of near where this happened. Was near what's it called? I'm not an alien conspiracy theorist.
I don't know, some alien thing. Yeah,
whatever the thing in New Mexico is that they're at.
Oh yeah, Roswell or something.
Yeah,
no, I don't know. Yeah, but anyway, and no, it was just an overreaction. But on the issue of this drone defense, this is a good thing in general, because it's laser. Laser is returnable and cheap, right? Right now, to shoot down a drone, in many cases, we're using, massively expensive weapons. It's a kind of a mismatch, right? Like a drone's $300. The weapons we're using are $50,000. So this is a good thing. But this is comedic in that I'm not sure the Border Patrol should be the first using this. I actually think the best use of a weapon like this is to send it to units in Ukraine who are actually defending against a real drone war right now and see what happens there. Similar to what the Brits are doing. They're creating an anti-drone weapon that's a laser, maybe further along than we know. And they're deploying that in Ukraine before their own side because there's a real life-saving benefit to it.
Yeah. It does seem like just also it was communications fuck up. It doesn't feel like they've got the A team here.
They don't.
Right? Like there's CBP is not communicating with the military, not communicating with DOT. They're shutting down the El Paso airport for 10 days. That's what
and
they initially said before they pulled it back.
Everybody is scared to underreact. And so they're overreacting. Everyone's worked at an organization like this, right? If you've been in the military, it's like, hey, the boss says we have to line up for formation at 7. So your squadron commander says, let's all get here at 6:30. The flight commander says, let's all get here at 6:15 because the commander wants us at 6:30. And you end up with that way front loading thing. And that's, I think, what you see here. Like, hey, we need to shut down the airspace temporarily. It's like, okay, 10 days.
10 days seem tough. We're tough. The cartels can't send any balloons our way. We'll stop people from flying to see their grandma.
It is perfect, though, that it was a balloon. It's just perfect.
You mentioned Ukraine. We went deep on this with Ben Wittes yesterday, but I wanted to give you a chance to cook on the latest out of Ukraine, if you want to.
I thought Ben gave a really good rundown. This war is by no means over. This war isn't even close to over. It is industrial fight right now between Ukraine and the West, I will say, and Russia. Who can produce the most stuff, who can produce it for the longest, and who can continue to put men on the front lines. And what Ukraine has been able to figure out is how to reduce their footprint on the front line, thus how to put less people in danger. You're only seeing movements now in groups of 1 and 2 people, not platoon movements, not massive armored movements. So you're seeing a lockdown front line because anywhere within 50 kilometers, basically, of each side of the line of contact is now under complete control of massive amounts of drones from both sides. So this is now a matter of who can strike medium, who can strike deep into each other's territory, who can defend themselves, and quite honestly, who has the industrial capacity to win. I think it's possible. I wouldn't have said this last time I was on the pod, but I think it's possible that in 5 or 10 years, there is still this thing going on. And unfortunately, we have to come to grips with it and not get numb to it.
I know. Yeah, that was that Economist article that really sat with me. I mentioned with Ben yesterday, where they kind of painted out a way that like it's 2030, and we're still in the stalemate in Ukraine. Russia and Belarus have more formally united. Maybe they pick off a little island in Estonia. Like this is just where we're at now.
And I just want to add to that real quickly, which is. In February, Lindsey Graham was talking about his sanctions bill that's ready to go, and Trump is going to try one more time to do
February
this.
Right now. You mean he was doing that this week?
A year ago. A year ago.
Yeah.
And he's constantly talking about his sanctions bill, and then Trump wants him to hold it back because they have this one chance to do something. It's been a year, Lindsey. I know you or your people listen to this. It is either get that bill done against the wishes of the president or shut up and just admit you're only going to do what Donald Trump wants, but you cannot have your cake and eat it too anymore. I'm sorry.
I don't think Lindsey listens anymore. I got to tell you, I did bump into him, I don't know, maybe a year ago now. And it was one of those situations where he remembered me from the old days. So like when he saw me walking up, he did the politician, a smile came across his face. Yeah. Right? It's like, oh, good to see you again. And then you saw it like click in his brain, like 8 seconds in as I started to talk. He was like, oh, wait, this person hates me now. So he's like, and then he started yelling at me, which is fine, which is good. I like that. He should have to deal with more exchanges.
He was a Jeb guy too.
Hiding in the airport.
He was a Jeb guy too.
He was. I want to do a little politics before I lose you. Should we do the Republicans or wussies first, or should we end with that? Maybe let's end with that.
Okay,
that'll be a little fun place to end. So let's talk about the Democrats really quick. 2 areas that you're in Texas. You live in Texas, and then you were in Indiana yesterday. So I kind of want to talk about both. Let's start with the Texas Senate race. It feels like a shit show to me.
Yeah.
And a huge opportunity to pick up a seat. And it's part of the reason why I'm talking about it a lot, because it's just extremely frustrating that we are where we are. But you're on the ground there. I'm hoping maybe it isn't as bad as it seems to me from my podcast studio.
It feels like it's bad. First off, let's just, on the Republican side, it's basically a 3-way tie, which is crazy. And if I was Cornyn, I would be embarrassed about that. Right. The fact that,
just for people who aren't paying attention, so it's John Cornyn, the sitting senator. Mm-hmm. Ken Paxton is the MAGA Tea Party guy who has a million issues: corruption, cheating on his wife, like everything, the whole gambit of MAGA foibles. He's done all of them. And then like a third kind of MAGA-ish guy, Wesley Hunt, got into the race as well. And that's, I think, the only thing really keeping Cornyn alive, really, kind of, because it's dividing up the vote a little bit. So anyway.
Yep, I think so too. And so that's probably, I think, good money is going to bet that Paxton is going to win. That's bad, and it's good if you're a Democrat, because Paxton is the one that Democrats could potentially beat. And keep in mind, in 2018, it was Beto who ran to the left, actually came within a point of winning statewide in Texas. And so this is the equivalent of that election cycle.
It is equivalent of that. So, but I think it's important to correct the record, for people to be clear-eyed on what Beto's 2018 campaign was, because it was not as left as his second campaign. And he wasn't like running as a moderate or anything, but he was really focused on I'm going to go everywhere in Texas. And remember, he did that thing with Will Hurd, right? Where it was like the two of them were in Congress and they're doing the road trip. So on the policy wise, he was running still as a liberal Democrat, but his brand, he was trying to cultivate a brand that was more bipartisan in 2018.
Yeah, great point.
I just think that's important to remember when you think about the fact that that's the closest the Democrats have gotten to success.
Yep. And like within a point. I mean, incredibly. Yeah. So it's Tallarico against Crockett, both very well spoken in terms of passionate, kind of getting everybody fired up. The polls show that Tallarico would have a much better shot against Paxton. And I think people in Texas need to simply know, I haven't obviously taken a side in the Democratic primary, but people need to know that if Paxton wins, if basically Paxton wins the primary, it has to be everything unleashed to beat him. That is the only thing that matters at that point, because if you think Cornyn or Ted Cruz are bad, holy cow, wait till Paxton comes. So unfortunately, it looks like it is a bloody fight. And I'm not sure that the guy that probably could do the best in the general election, Tallarico, is going to win. I don't know. But that's the situation we're sitting in. On the other hand, on the House side, there's like Texas 9. My buddy Terry Virts is running, astronaut running in the primary there. If he can win that primary, I think that can be a takeaway from, it wouldn't really technically be a takeaway from the Republicans, but it would be one of the districts they counted on to go Republican. It's 60% Hispanic. So there's real opportunity for Texas.
Bobby Polito, who I had on a couple weeks ago, running down there in South Texas. So no, there on the House side, there are opportunities. This takes us into the Indiana thing that I want to talk to you about. And so I want to frame it up through this poll. And this is kind of why I'm obsessed with the Texas thing. This is Trump net approval. Morning Consult did that. It's checked his approval in every state by state. And, there's margin of error in all this. And, so I don't want to get overstated, but directionally you can get a sense for what the battlefield looks like. And you look here at the states where he is kind of just a little bit in the green still. Montana, he's +4. Nebraska's +6, I should mention, because I think that Dan Osborne Senate race is interesting. South Carolina only +3, Florida +2, Texas +2, Kansas +1, Indiana, where you were, even. Ohio, even. The big Sherrod Brown Senate race there. Alaska and Iowa, two other places where there are conceivably competitive Senate races. He's -1. And then you kind of jump into the blue states. But I just think if you look at that batch, and those are all states he won by 10 points or more: Iowa, Alaska, Ohio, Indiana, Kansas, Texas, Florida. And his approval is between +2 and -1 in those states. Could get worse as the year goes on. We'll see. But Democrats need to be very serious about competing in those states.
That's right.
And winning in those states in the Senate, and need to have the type of candidates that can appeal in those states. So anyway, you were in Indiana. Let's see. What do you think about that? The broader picture and what you saw in Indiana.
Yeah, so I met with Indiana Democrats in Anderson, Indiana. It was one of the congressional districts. Look, here's the thing is I think back, the best example of what this year could be is 2010. And you were part of 2010 with me, which is, look, I ended up running against a Democrat that had won my district by 23 points, and I beat her by 15. Okay. Now that gives you an idea of that kind of swing. And it was without a scandal. She didn't do anything scandalous. There were a lot of colleagues I've discalculated there.
She had won by 23 and you won by 15, or she had won by 15?
She had won by 23 and then I beat her.
Crazy.
Yeah, it was a massive, massive flip. And then I ended up serving with a lot of people that had no clue they would actually win. I mean, honestly, people that were showing up to freshman orientation, like looking around, they knew they'd probably only be there 2 years, but they're like, what in the wow, this is incredible. I didn't think I'd be here. Yeah. That is this year, except on the potential for a blue wave here instead of a red wave. There are going to be people that win races in Indiana or Texas or any of these states that we're going to look at and be like, that person was never on the DCCC, the Democratic Congressional Campaign, never on their radar, never on the NRCC's radar to defend, and they won by 5 or 10%. So this is why it is essential to put good candidates in place, to elect the best one to compete in the general election out of a primary, because this is not the time to pass a purity test. This is the time to defend our democracy by taking power away, not just barely, but crushing the Republicans so that Mike Johnson never does anything public again, because he's so embarrassed by how much they lost the House. And by the way, now the Senate's in play, which is insane. It's insane.
just to your point, and it's not over. That's why I'm like continuing to talk about this. It's February 12th. And filing deadlines have passed in some states, but not others. Like California is still in March. Colorado is in March. Like Hawaii's in June. I'm just like kind of scrolling down here really quick. Iowa still. So Democrats have a lot of candidates. The House recruitment is going, I think, much better. But there is, I think those stretch districts are still going to be so critical. And that's kind of what I'm focused on as well. Just encouraging people. It's not too late to decide to run, to choose to run, and to think about different types of candidates that might fit those districts a little better.
Amen.
Amen.
And vote strategically in the primary. Yeah. I get it. Somebody may have a different view on one thing than you, or 5 things even. Vote strategically, because in many cases it's that versus a MAGA, and I'm sure I know who you would prefer.
I want to say this every time, because as a former Republican, people hear vote strategically, and you're like, oh, vote for the most moderate person. And then in some districts that does mean moderate. But I also I want to see more like working class Dems running, who have backgrounds, who like are from the community, who maybe they're economically way more to the left of me, but like they were a cop or something, and so they have some cultural cachet that's a little bit more in the middle. I just think that more of that type of thing is better. Anything in particular from Indiana strike out to you from the conversations?
Just energy, man. I mean, honestly, I went there thinking, well, I'm probably going to have to deal with, people are going to be down and kind of, muttering. It's Indiana. And I even had made a comment once to somebody like, I know it's a red state. And their response wasn't, no, it's not. We're really close. It's not as red as people think. And that is exactly what I wanted to see, because they have a fighting spirit, which was pretty cool.
Was it weird just for you to speak at a Democratic rubber chicken dinner?
I've been doing it for about a year now. So no.
How does it feel?
It feels much more welcoming than if I went to a Republican one and did it. That's for sure.
Nobody's telling you you're the devil. Satan has entered.
Yeah,
Satan
exactly.
is in the house.
You're on the Epstein files. Actually, no, I'm not. Well, you should be on the Epstein
the
files.
Commerce Secretary is. Not
Exactly.
All right. Last thing that I teased. I don't believe I've played Nick Fuentes' voice on this podcast ever. And you don't ever have to hand it to white nationalists and racists. Nick Fuentes, I have no love for him at all. I think he's deeply pernicious. Sometimes, though, deeply pernicious people that say what they really think occasionally have some clarity that the hacks don't have, right? Sean Hannity never has any clarity because he's just a hack. All right. He's just saying whatever the party wants. Because Nick Fuentes is a gross incel, he's occasionally says stuff that the party doesn't like to hear. And every once in a while it's right. And this happens to be one of those cases. I'd like to listen to him.
It's not funny anymore. It's not edgy. It's really just become a drag. At one point, we were the trolls, and now we're the butthurt ones. There was a point in time when we were having fun, and we were laughing, and we were trolling, and we were making jokes. And now our side are the biggest butthurt of all time. The far right has become the biggest butthurt ever. Everybody's mad all the time. You can't make jokes. Everyone's moral about everything. Purity spiraling. At the end of the day, people don't even really have a vision for what the country should be.
The Republicans are butthurt. They don't have a vision. They're not fun anymore. They're whining about Bad Bunny and all the Olympian. I just think that that in summation explains why JD Vance is going to have a really hard time.
I agree.
Because all of those things, all those complaints he said just define JD Vance. He's constantly butthurt about everything. And Trump at least has some fun sometimes. And I think it is a correct assessment of the problems with the right now.
As a right in the middle of X and millennial, some zennial, I can understand the idea of why trolling has such a draw to people, although I can't really explain it, right? I will say he's right on in that whole thing about they used to have fun doing this. They loved to take people off. They loved making people victims. And now, listen, this is the party. I can't tell you, even up to my last year in Congress, we would talk about the ruggedness of the individual and the Republican Party that believes that men should be able to, provide for the family and whatever. We have created an entire generation of victim sissies. I mean, I've got to tell you, watching, 50-year-old white men who are complaining that they're being, pushed out of society. Look, you can have real issues with things like hiring preferences. I understand that. But to say that you now are being discriminated in society, it wasn't just Bad Bunny, Tim, that they were upset about. They've been upset about every halftime Super Bowl since I was like 1 year old. Every halftime Super Bowl that didn't include Lee Greenwood. I mean, we are creating an entire generation of men that sit on the internet. They watch other men talk about how unfair their life is and how things are terrible. And my grandfather stared down Nazis in World War II and came home and never talked about it. He wasn't the nicest guy ever. So I'm not saying we need to be exactly like that. But for once, practice what you preach. Grow up, be rugged, stop being a frickin' whiny victim. And my advice to Democrats is keep calling these people out as whiny victims because it drives them nuts and it makes them more victim-y. And ultimately, Americans hate whiny victims. Okay, that's not
appealing.
Diatribe.
Yeah, no, they're diaper babies. It's not appealing. Yeah. And like you think about the people, the gains that they made among men between Obama and Trump, a lot of those guys, like they're not signing up for they were upset at the woke scolding, right. And like, I don't think that they're going to take any better to JD Vance's patriotic hall monitor scolding. Yeah. I don't think nobody wants a hall monitor in chief. It's not fun. It is not in the American spirit or tradition, frankly. And, they're diaper babies.
Just grow up, people. Just grow up, right? Like, just grow up. Like, be a man.
Yeah.
Grow up.
Or no, don't keep whining about everything. Or keep bitching about Bad Bunny. We'll see how it goes for you. We'll see how it goes. You made all these gains among Hispanic men, and it's like, oh, the society is over if it was a Spanish halftime show.
English, no. By the way, we only speak English in America. English is American. Now, actually, English is from England.
Did you see the other guy not Kid Rock, the other guy at the alternate halftime show? It was the saddest, most pathetic thing I've ever heard. It was this fat country fuck up there doing a sad song. And I like sad songs. Sad things happen to people. There's a lot of great, the history of the blues music is talking about all the bad things that happen to folks, like legitimately bad things. Because a lot of times the blues musicians were came from slaves, like descendant of slaves, and they were in Jim Crow South, and it's like they had legitimate things to complain about. This fucking whiny bitch was up there just going like, it's hard being country in this country. I just want to fish and mow my lawn without having to turn on the news and hear people being mean to me. And it's just like, really?
Okay, then don't turn on the news, dude.
Yeah, right. Just fish if you want. You can fish.
I'm tired of having to take this fishing knife and stab myself in the leg. Well, you could also just not do it, and then you wouldn't be stabbed in the leg. Good Lord,
just an
people.
Idea. Something to think about. All right, Adam Kinzinger, it's always a joy being with you, my friend.
You too, man.
Hope to see you soon. And everybody go check him out on Substack, wherever else he is. Go support Country First. And for the rest of y'all, I'll be back here tomorrow because it's Friday for another edition of the show. We'll see y'all then. Peace.